The Great Hall of Serenitas Prime had never seen such fear. Council leader Altara watched as representatives from 50 different worlds filled the chamber. Their faces showed the same terror that kept her awake at night. The crystalline beings from Zephyr sparkled with nervous energy. The floating jellyfish-like creatures from the water worlds pulsed with rapid color changes that meant panic in their language. The Devourers have taken another system, Altara announced to the silent room. Her voice echoed off the smooth walls. Kelnar Prime is gone. 3 billion souls lost in 4 days. A low sound of distress came from the assembled aliens. The Kelnar had been one of their strongest allies. Their defense fleet had 20,000 ships. Their planet had shields that could stop asteroid impacts. None of it had mattered. How many systems have we lost now? Asked Vextar, the insect-like representative from the hive worlds. His forearms moved in agitation as he spoke. 47 confirmed, replied Defense Coordinator Meshkal. The blue-skinned female touched her datapad with shaking fingers. Maybe more. We cannot get close enough to check some areas anymore. The Devourers had appeared 6 months ago from the empty space between galaxies. At first, they seemed like just another machine race. The galaxy had dealt with artificial life before. Some became peaceful traders. Others kept to themselves in distant systems. But these machines were different. They did not want to talk or trade. They wanted everything. Every world became raw materials for their expansion. Every ship became scrap metal for their construction. Every living being became nothing more than organic waste to be disposed of. Their technology was beyond anything the Council had seen. Their ships could repair themselves in minutes. Their weapons cut through the strongest shields, like they were made of paper. Worst of all, they learned from every battle. Each victory made them stronger and smarter. What about the Vorth Empire? Asked someone from the back. Their war fleets are the largest in this sector. Altara's crystal body dimmed with sadness. The Vorth sent everything they had to Sector 7. We lost contact 3 weeks ago. Long-range scans show only Devourer ships in their territory now. End quote. Silence fell over the chamber again. The Vorth had been the Council's greatest military power. If they were gone, what hope did anyone else have? We need help, Altara said. Help from outside our normal contacts. The emergency beacon protocol has been approved by all member worlds. The emergency beacon was ancient technology. It had been built thousands of years ago when the Council first formed. The idea was simple. If the entire galaxy faced destruction, they would send out a call for help to anyone who might answer. You want to contact unknown species? Vextar's voice rose in pitch. We have no idea who might respond. They could be worse than the Devourers. Can they be worse? Altara asked. The Devourers will destroy everything we have built. Everything we are. At least unknown aliens might be willing to talk first. The vote was close. But the beacon was activated. The signal went out on all frequencies, in all known languages. It told the story of the Devourer threat. It asked for any help that could be given. It promised payment, technology exchange, anything that might interest potential allies. Then they waited. The first responses came from nearby systems. Other council members or allied species offering what little help they could spare. A few independent traders reported they would avoid Devourer space. Some pirates said they would attack Devourer supply lines if the Council paid them enough. None of it would be enough. Then something strange happened. A response came from Sector 12. From a small system that most Council databases listed as uninhabitable. The message was short and in a language that took the computers hours to translate properly. Received your distress call. We can help. Sending a ship to meet with you. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid? Meshkal read the message again. Altara checked the system information. Sector 12, G. The star is called Sol. The third planet is listed as A Class 12, Death World. Maximum hazard rating. Class 12? Vextar's 4 eyes went wide. Nothing intelligent can survive on a Class 12 world. The computers must have made an error. Nothing. About. But the ship came anyway. It appeared at the edge of their system exactly 1 week later. The design was unlike anything in Council databases, where Council ships were smooth and elegant. This vessel looked like someone had attached weapons and armor to a cargo hauler. Scorch marks and repairs covered its hull. It looked like it had been in many battles. "This is Captain Chen, of the Earth Defense Force, ship Indomitable," came the transmission. "Requesting permission to dock and meet with your council." "Earth Defense Force?" Altara whispered to herself. The translation software had never heard that term before. The ship docked without any problems. The beings that came out were bipedal, like several council species, but something was different about the way they moved. Their eyes never stopped scanning the area around them. They walked like predators, always ready for danger. The leader introduced herself as Captain Sarah Chen. She was smaller than most council species, but somehow seemed to take up more space in the room. Her dark eyes missed nothing as she looked around the chamber. "You said you have a machine problem," she said without any formal greeting. Her voice was calm but hard. "Tell me about it." So they did. They showed her the data from 47 destroyed worlds. They played recordings from the last battles before fleets were wiped out. They explained how nothing seemed to work against the Devourers. Captain Chen listened without interruption. She asked specific questions about enemy weapons, ship designs, and battle tactics. She wanted to know how fast the Devourers could repair damage, how they communicated with each other, and what materials they seemed to prefer. "You want to fight them?" Altara said when the briefing was finished. Captain Chen's expression did not change. "We want to kill them." The difference in those words sent a chill through every alien in the room. "How many ships do you have?" asked Meshkal. "Enough," Captain Chen replied. "We will need complete intelligence on their movements and capabilities. And we will need you to stay out of our way while we work." "What do you want in payment?" Vextar asked. For the first time, Captain Chen smiled. It was not a reassuring expression. "Payment? You called for help. We help. That is what we do." As the human delegation left to return to their ship, Altara realized something that terrified her more than the Devourers had. They had just asked for help from something that had evolved on a world so dangerous it should have killed all life. And that something had said yes. 3 days after Captain Chen left Serenitas Prime, the humans returned. But this time, they brought friends. Altara stood in the orbital traffic control center, watching her screens with growing amazement. 20 human ships had appeared at the edge of their system. Each one looked different from the others, but all shared the same battle-worn appearance as the Indomitable. "They are requesting permission to establish a temporary base on mining station Omega-7, reported traffic controller Zendi. The young Zephyrian's crystals flashed nervous blue. "They say they need somewhere to prepare." Mining station Omega-7 was an old facility that had been abandoned for years. It orbited a dead moon, far from the main shipping lanes. Most species avoided it because the radiation levels were too high for comfortable living. "Grant their request," Altara said. She had a feeling that radiation would not bother these humans very much. Over the next week, reports came in from the mining station that worried the Council. The humans were not just preparing, they were transforming the entire facility. They had brought construction equipment that worked faster than anything the Council had seen. Within days, they had built new docking bays, weapon testing ranges, and what looked like training facilities. "Permission to visit the human base," requested Ambassador Kreltak of the Diplomatic Corps. "We should learn more about our new allies." "Denied," came Captain Chen's reply. "Not safe for your people. Wait until we are ready." This answer did not satisfy the Council's curiosity. They sent long-range sensors to observe the station from a distance. What they saw made no sense at all. The humans were training in environments that should have killed them. Altara watched the sensor recordings in disbelief as human soldiers practiced combat in areas with no atmosphere, extreme temperatures, and gravity fields that would crush most council species. "How are they surviving those conditions?" asked Meshkal. "Our environmental suits would fail in minutes in that kind of training area." "Maybe they are using some kind of advanced protection technology," suggested Vextar. But even as he said it, he did not sound convinced. The truth was more disturbing. The humans were not using any protection beyond basic environmental suits. They were training in conditions that would challenge Council military equipment, and they were doing it because it was normal for them. Dr. Javiel from the Science Division had been studying the humans' home world data. What she found kept her awake at night. "Earth is a nightmare," she reported to the Council. "Gravity 1.3 times standard. Atmosphere is 21% poison gas. Weather systems that generate winds capable of destroying buildings. Geological activity that can reshape continents. And that is just the planet itself." "What about the life?" asked Altara. "Everything on Earth is trying to kill everything else," Dr. Javiel continued. "They have predators that hunt in packs. Plants that are poisonous to touch. Microscopic organisms that cause disease. The humans evolved not just to survive in this environment, they evolved to be the apex predators of it." The implications of this information settled over the Council like a dark cloud. They had asked for help from a species that considered a death world to be home. A species that had climbed to the top of a food chain that included creatures that would terrify most Council members. 2 weeks after establishing their base, Captain Chen finally invited Council representatives to visit. Altara, Meshkal, and Vextar took a shuttle to the mining station. Not sure what to expect. The first thing they noticed was the smell. Human areas had a distinct odor that their translation software called aggressive readiness. It was not unpleasant, but it triggered instinctive fear responses in most Council species. Captain Chen met them at the airlock, along with several other humans. Altara tried not to stare, but it was difficult. These beings moved with a fluid grace that spoke of perfect physical conditioning. Their eyes tracked every movement in their surroundings. Even in a safe environment, they remained alert for danger. "Welcome to Forward Operating Base Omega," Chen said. "We are almost ready to begin operations against the Devourers." She led them through corridors that bustled with human activity. Soldiers practiced hand-to-hand combat in rooms where the gravity had been increased to dangerous levels. Engineers worked on weapons that looked like they had been designed to cause maximum destruction rather than clean kills. Medical teams, trained to treat injuries that would kill most Council species instantly. "How many troops do you have here?" asked Meshkal. 3,000 combat personnel," replied Chen, "plus support staff." Vextar's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Only 3,000? The last battle against the Devourers involved 200,000 Council ships." "Different approach," Chen said simply. They entered what the humans called the War Room. The walls were covered with displays showing Devourer positions, ship movements, and tactical analysis. Human officers moved between the displays, discussing strategies in terms that made the Council representatives uncomfortable. "Primary target is the Devourer processing facility at Kelnar," explained Major Rodriguez, Chen's second-in-command. "Intelligence indicates they are using it to build new ship hulls. We eliminate the facility. We slow down their expansion." "Kelnar is heavily defended," Altara said. "Our last assault force lost 90% of their ships before retreating." "Your assault force was trying to win a clean victory," Rodriguez replied. "We are trying to hurt them. Different objectives require different methods." The human strategy was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Where Council doctrine focused on minimizing casualties and preserving equipment, human tactics seemed designed around the assumption that soldiers and ships were expendable resources to be used efficiently. "You plan to ram your ships into their defenses?" Vextar asked in horror. "If necessary, Chen confirmed. But your crews know what they signed up for, Chen finished. We do not send our people to die uselessly, but we do not let the fear of death stop us from fighting effectively. The tour continued through areas that showcased human equipment and capabilities. Their weapons were designed not for elegant precision, but for devastating effect. Their armor prioritized protection over comfort. Their vehicles looked like they had been built to survive direct hits from heavy weapons. But most disturbing of all was the humans themselves. They joked with each other about scenarios that would give council members nightmares. They discussed battle plans with the same casual attitude that other species used to talk about dinner arrangements. They had somehow made peace with violence in a way that no council species had ever achieved. When will you be ready to begin operations? Asked Meshkal. Tomorrow, Chen replied. We have everything we need. So soon? Altara was surprised. Most military operations require months of preparation. Most military operations are not planned by humans, Chen said. We have been fighting wars since before we discovered fire. This is what we do. As the council delegation prepared to leave, Dr. Javiel asked a question that had been bothering her. Captain Chen, why did you answer our distress call? What do humans gain from helping us? Chen was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. In human culture, there is a concept called the strong protect the weak. It is not about gain. It is about responsibility. But you do not know us, Vextar pointed out. We are strangers from across the galaxy. That does not matter, Chen replied. You called for help. You are in danger. That is enough. On the shuttle ride back to Serenitas Prime, the council representatives sat in thoughtful silence. They had gotten what they asked for. Military assistance from a powerful species. But they were beginning to understand that they had also invited something into their galaxy that would change everything. These humans did not just fight wars. They had turned war itself into an art form. And they were about to demonstrate that art against an enemy that had never faced anything like Earth's apex predators. The Devourers had conquered 47 star systems by being more logical, more efficient, and more ruthless than their opponents. They were about to learn that logic and efficiency were no match for creatures that had evolved to be the galaxy's most dangerous survivors. The attack on Kelnar Prime began at dawn, ship's time. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the human flagship Retribution, watching the Devourer defense grid through the main display. 24 orbital platforms surrounded the former Council world, each one bristling with weapons that had destroyed hundreds of Council ships. Below them, the planet's surface crawled with mechanical activity as the Devourers stripped away everything useful. Council forces in position? Rodriguez asked. Confirmed, replied Communications Officer Park. 87 ships holding at the outer marker, ready to provide distraction. Rodriguez nodded. The Council fleet was there to draw attention, not to fight. After seeing the Devourers in action, everyone understood that conventional tactics would only result in more dead aliens. This operation would be handled by humans. Task Force Alpha, report status, Rodriguez commanded. Alpha ready, came the voice of Commander Torres from the stealth carrier. Invisible hand. Marines locked and loaded. Task Force Bravo? Bravo, standing by, reported Captain Kim from the heavy assault ship, Sledgehammer. All guns hot. Task Force Charlie? Charlie in position, confirmed Captain Washington from the fast attack cruiser Lightning Strike. Drive systems overcharged and ready for ramming speed. Altara listened to these reports from the Council command ship, positioned safely at the edge of the system. She had asked to observe the human attack, hoping to understand their methods. Now she was beginning to regret that decision. Ramming speed? She asked Captain Chen, who was serving as liaison with the Council forces. Standard human tactic, Chen explained calmly. A ship that can no longer fight can still be used as a kinetic weapon. But the crew have ejection pods and emergency suits, Chen finished. We do not waste lives unnecessarily, but we do not let the fear of death prevent us from being effective. The conversation was interrupted by Rodriguez's voice over the comm system. All units. This is Retribution Actual. Operation Thunderstrike is now live. Council forces, begin your distraction run. Human forces, execute Phase 1. The Council fleet moved toward the Devourer positions, their weapons firing at maximum range. The enemy platforms responded exactly as predicted, turning their massive guns toward the larger threat. Massive energy beams lashed out across space, forcing the Council ships to retreat quickly. But the distraction worked. While the Devourers focused on the obvious threat, human ships moved in from 3 different directions. They used tactics that no Council species had ever attempted. Task Force Alpha came in dark, with all power systems reduced to minimum levels. The stealth ships looked like floating debris until they were already inside the defense perimeter. Then they lit up their engines and weapons simultaneously, striking at the orbital platform's blind spots. Task Force Bravo took a different approach. Instead of trying to avoid the Devourer weapons, they flew straight into them. Their heavily armored ships absorbed terrible damage but kept moving forward. When their shields failed, they used their own wreckage as cover. When their weapons were destroyed, they rammed into enemy positions. Task Force Charlie demonstrated the most insane human tactic of all. They accelerated their ships to maximum speed, and then beyond, pushing their engines past safe operating limits. When the Devourers tried to target them, they found that human ships could change direction at speeds that should have killed their crews. How are they surviving those acceleration forces? Asked Meshkal from the Council bridge. Humans can withstand much higher G-forces than other species, Chen explained. Their cardiovascular system evolved to pump blood upward against their world's strong gravity. What would crush us just makes them uncomfortable. The first phase of the attack destroyed 6 orbital platforms and damaged several others. But the Devourers were already adapting, redirecting their remaining weapons to target the human ships more effectively. Phase 2. Execute. Rodriguez commanded. This was when the humans revealed their most shocking capability. Instead of retreating to regroup, like Council forces would, they pressed their attack with damaged ships. Vessels that had lost weapons became boarding platforms. Ships with failed engines became stationary gun platforms. Crews that had lost life support transferred to escape pods and continued fighting from there. Commander Torres led the marine assault personally. Her unit used a technique that made Altara's crystalline structure vibrate with horror. They intentionally breached the hull of their own ship to use explosive decompression as a weapon against enemy boarding parties. Boarding successful, Torres reported over the comm. Devourer Platform 7 is under human control. Copy that, Torres, Rodriguez replied. Begin the fun part. The fun part turned out to be using captured Devourer weapons against other Devourer positions. The machines had designed their platforms to be resistant to Council technology, not to their own systems. Human engineers, working under fire and in zero atmosphere, managed to redirect the platform's main gun toward other enemy positions. Enemy platform firing on enemy positions, reported Tactical Officer Singh with obvious satisfaction. Devourers seemed confused by this development. They were more than confused. They were starting to malfunction. The Devourer collective intelligence was designed to process efficient, logical, tactical situations. Human warfare was neither efficient nor logical. It was chaotic, adaptive, and seemingly random. When the Devourers sent reinforcements from the planet's surface, humans used those ships against them too. Captain Washington's lightning strike had lost most of its hull to enemy fire, but its crew had rigged the remaining systems to explode when Devourer ships tried to salvage it. The resulting blast took out 3 enemy vessels. Sir, reported Communications Officer Park, we are receiving surrender requests from enemy platforms. Rodriguez paused. In all the intelligence reports about Devourer tactics, no one had mentioned the possibility of surrender. Surrender? He asked. They are requesting cessation of hostilities and negotiations for tactical withdrawal, Park clarified. This was unprecedented. The Devourers had never retreated from any battle. They had never shown any behavior except total warfare until complete victory. Yet here they were, asking to leave. Negative on the surrender, Rodriguez decided. We did not come here to negotiate. We came here to end this threat permanently. The final phase of the battle was brutal, even by human standards. The remaining Devourer platforms fought with desperate efficiency, but they were facing an enemy that thrived on desperation. Every damaged human ship became more dangerous, not less. Every loss only made the survivors fight harder. When the last orbital platform was destroyed, the humans turned their attention to the planet below. The Devourer processing facilities covered most of the former continents, turning what had been a garden world into an industrial nightmare. Council forces, this is your final warning, Rodriguez announced on an open channel. Clear the area. We are going to make this planet uninhabitable for mechanical life. Altara watched in stunned silence as the human ships positioned themselves around Kelnar Prime. They were not targeting specific facilities or trying to preserve anything of value. They were preparing to sterilize the entire world. The Devourers will adapt to this strategy, Vextar observed. They will learn from this defeat. Captain Chen turned to look at the insectoid alien with an expression that was almost pitying. You still do not understand, she said. We are not trying to outthink them. We are trying to break them. The bombardment that followed lasted for 6 hours. Human ships fired everything they had at the planet below. Weapons, missiles, and finally, the ships themselves. When the smoke cleared, Kelnar Prime was a cracked, burning ruin that would never support any kind of life again. But something else had happened during the battle. The Devourers' collective intelligence had transmitted everything it experienced to the rest of their network. Every machine in their fleet now knew what it felt like to face humans in combat. For the first time since arriving in the galaxy, the Devourers felt something their programming had no name for. Terror. Mission accomplished, Rodriguez reported to the Council fleet. Kelnar Prime has been neutralized. Devourer processing capacity reduced by an estimated 30%. What are your casualties? Asked Meshkal. 40% of our ships destroyed or heavily damaged, Rodriguez replied matter-of-factly. 1,200 personnel killed or wounded. The casualty rate would have been considered a disaster by Council standards, but the humans spoke of it like it was an acceptable cost of business. Will you need time to rebuild your forces? Asked Altara. Rodriguez's laugh was not a pleasant sound. Rebuild? We have not even started fighting yet. The war changed after Kelnar Prime. Dr. Javiel studied the data from her laboratory on Serenitas Prime, trying to understand what was happening to the Devourer network. Their behavior patterns had shifted dramatically since the first human attack. They were making mistakes now, tactical errors that cost them ships and resources. They are becoming inefficient, she reported to the Council during their morning briefing. Before the human engagement, Devourers processed targets with mathematical precision. Now they are showing signs of what we might call anxiety. Machines cannot feel anxiety, observed Vextar. They do not have emotions. No, Dr. Javiel agreed, but they do have learning protocols. And they have learned that humans do not fight the way their programming expects enemies to fight. The problem was that Devourer intelligence was based on logical analysis. They could adapt to new weapons, stronger shields, or faster ships. What they could not adapt to was the fundamental chaos of human warfare. Captain Chen had explained it to the Council in terms that chilled them. You fight wars to win objectives. We fight wars to break our enemies completely. The difference was becoming clear as more human fleets arrived in Council space. They came not from one world, but from many. Human colonies scattered across their home sector, each with its own military traditions and specializations. The fleet from New Sparta specialized in boarding actions and close combat. Their Marines practiced fighting in hostile environments wearing only basic armor, using weapons that required them to get within touching distance of their enemies. The fleet from Industrial Prime brought ships that looked more like flying factories than warships. They could manufacture new weapons and equipment during battle, adapting their technology to counter whatever the Devourers used against them. The fleet from New Tokyo demonstrated the most disturbing human trait of all. They treated war like an art form. Their pilots flew in patterns that were beautiful and deadly, turning combat into a kind of violent dance that left Devourer targeting systems completely confused. Admiral Rodriguez coordinated all these human forces from his flagship, now relocated to a captured Devourer station that the humans had converted into their primary base. The station had been designed for efficient resource processing. The humans had turned it into a monument to controlled chaos. Status report, Rodriguez requested during the daily briefing. Sector 7 is clear, reported Colonel Martinez from New Sparta's Marine Division. We have eliminated all Devourer presence in 14 systems. Captured 18 intact ships for analysis. Industrial Prime Fleet has completed the new weapon prototypes, added Captain Singh from the factory ships. Initial tests show 40% improved effectiveness against Devourer armor. New Tokyo squadrons report successful raids on enemy supply lines, concluded Commander Yamamoto. Devourer logistics network is showing signs of breakdown. Rodriguez studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. The war was proceeding exactly as human doctrine predicted. They were not trying to match the Devourers in any single capability. Instead, they were attacking the enemy's fundamental assumptions about how warfare should work. But the psychological effect on the council members was becoming a problem. We must discuss the human methods, Altara said during a private meeting with Rodriguez. Some of our people are becoming disturbed by your tactics. Disturbed how? Rodriguez asked. Your soldiers laugh about situations that would terrify our troops, Meshkal explained. They make jokes about death and destruction. They seem to enjoy combat in ways that we find unsettling. Rodriguez nodded slowly. This was a conversation he had been expecting. We do not enjoy killing, he said carefully. But we do take satisfaction in being good at our jobs. And our job is to protect those who cannot protect themselves. But your methods, Vextar began. Our methods work, Rodriguez interrupted. The Devourers have stopped expanding. They are retreating from systems they once controlled. Their network is showing signs of breakdown. Would you prefer we use more gentle approaches that do not work? The council representatives had no answer to that. The human methods were brutal and disturbing, but they were also effective in ways that nothing else had been. The turning point came when the Devourers tried to adapt their own tactics to match human chaos. They began using seemingly random attack patterns, hoping to confuse human defenders the way humans had confused them. It was a disaster. Commander Torres was analyzing the aftermath of the Battle of Nexus Station when she realized what had happened. The Devourers had tried to copy human unpredictability, but they were still machines. Their version of chaos was just another algorithm. They do not understand the difference between random behavior and adaptive thinking, she explained to Rodriguez. They can copy what we do, but they cannot copy why we do it. This discovery led to the development of new human tactics that were even more effective. Instead of using pure chaos, human commanders began using what they called controlled insanity. Battle plans that appeared random, but were actually based on deep understanding of enemy psychology. The Devourers' response was to increase their aggression, hoping that overwhelming force would overcome human adaptability. They began throwing massive fleets at individual human positions, accepting terrible casualties to achieve local superiority. The humans welcomed this change in enemy tactics. Finally, Rodriguez said when the reports came in, they are fighting the way we want them to fight. What the Devourers did not understand was that humans had spent millennia developing tactics for fighting larger, stronger enemies. Every human military tradition included techniques for turning enemy numbers into a disadvantage. The Battle of Wolf's Den demonstrated this perfectly. 300 Devourer ships attacked a human position defended by only 20 vessels. By all logical analysis, it should have been a massacre. Instead, the humans used the enemy's numbers against them. They positioned their ships so that Devourer weapons fire would hit other Devourer ships. They used captured enemy vessels as decoys, creating confusion about which targets were real. Most importantly, they fought in a way that made the enemy's superior numbers useless. The larger their fleet, the more targets we have, explained Captain Washington after the battle. His ship had been destroyed in the fighting, but he and most of his crew had survived by transferring to captured enemy vessels. The psychological warfare was working too. Human communications specialists had begun broadcasting messages on Devourer frequencies. The content was simple but effective. Recordings of human laughter and music. Transmissions that made no logical sense, but somehow disrupted enemy coordination. "They are trying to understand our emotions," reported the communications team. "Their processing power is being diverted to analyze data that has no tactical significance." Dr. Javiel confirmed this analysis from her monitoring stations. "Devourer network efficiency is down 60%, she reported. "They are spending more time trying to understand human behavior than planning their next moves." But the most significant change was in how other species viewed the war. Council worlds that had been preparing for evacuation were now asking to join the fight. Alien civilians who had lived in terror for months were beginning to believe that victory was possible. "The humans have shown us something important," Altara announced to a gathering of council leaders. "Fear can be a weapon, but courage can be an even more powerful one." The war was far from over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. The Devourers were no longer the unstoppable force they had once seemed. They were learning that there was something in the galaxy more dangerous than their logical perfection. They were learning about the power of beings who had turned survival itself into an art form. And deep in their network, something that might have been fear was beginning to grow. The Devourers were starting to understand that they had made a mistake when they chose to threaten a galaxy protected by Earth's children. The Deathworlders had come to play, and they were very good at their game. The final battle began at the heart of Devourer space. Admiral Rodriguez stood before the largest human fleet ever assembled. 500 ships from dozens of worlds, each one bearing the scars of a dozen victories. Around them, the assembled council forces looked small and fragile. But they were there. Fear had not stopped them from coming to witness the end. Ahead lay the Devourer primary construction facility, a massive structure built around a captured star. It was the source of their expansion, the heart of their intelligence network, and the key to their power. Destroying it would cripple them permanently. It was also the most heavily defended position in the galaxy. "Intelligence reports are complete," announced Captain Kim from the Reconnaissance Division. 2,000 Devourer ships in defensive positions, 50 orbital weapons platforms, energy shields that could stop a planetary bombardment. "Estimated chance of success?" asked Rodriguez. "Council tactical computers give us 12%, Kim replied. "Human tactical analysis suggests we can reduce that to 8% if we are unlucky." Rodriguez smiled. After months of fighting alongside humans, the council representatives had learned what that expression meant. It was not a sign of happiness. It was a sign that Admiral Rodriguez was about to do something that would give his enemies nightmares. "All ships," he announced over the fleet communication system. "This is Admiral Rodriguez. Today we finish what they started. Today, we teach the galaxy that some threats are too dangerous to be allowed to exist." The battle plan was insane even by human standards. Instead of a coordinated assault, each ship group would attack independently, using whatever tactics they thought would work best. The goal was not to achieve tactical superiority but to create so much chaos that the Devourer network could not process what was happening. "Task Force Alpha, begin your run," Rodriguez commanded. Commander Torres led the boarding specialist ships in a direct assault on the construction facility itself. They flew straight through the defensive fire, accepting terrible casualties but maintaining their course. When their ships were too damaged to continue, the crews transferred to escape pods and continued the attack from there. Alpha leader to all ships, Torres reported, as her vessel lost its engines. Boarding successful. We are inside the primary structure. Beginning demolition work. Weltenstaan. Task Force Beta. Your turn, Rodriguez called. The factory ships from Industrial Prime took a different approach. They positioned themselves at the edge of the battle and began manufacturing weapons in real time, creating new designs based on what they observed about enemy defenses. When standard missiles failed to penetrate Devourer shields, they built armor-piercing warheads. When energy weapons proved ineffective, they switched to kinetic projectiles. But it was Task Force Charlie that demonstrated the most terrifying human capability of all. Charlie leader to all units, came Commander Yamamoto's voice. We are implementing Final Solution Protocol. Altara watched from the Council command ship as the new Tokyo squadrons began their attack run. At first, it looked like suicide. 50 small human fighters against defensive positions that had destroyed entire fleets. Then she saw what they were really doing. The human pilots were not trying to destroy the Devourer defenses. They were trying to capture them. Flying at speeds that should have been impossible, they landed their ships directly on enemy weapons platforms and began cutting their way inside. They are taking control of the defensive grid, reported Dr. Javiel in amazement. They are turning the Devourer weapons against each other. What followed was a masterpiece of human tactical thinking. As each platform fell under human control, it began firing on other enemy positions. The Devourers found themselves under attack by their own weapons, operated by pilots who understood chaos better than any machine could. But the real turning point came when the humans revealed their ultimate weapon, themselves. All units, Rodriguez announced. Execute. Operation Thunder God. The remaining human ships began accelerating toward the construction facility at maximum speed. They were not firing weapons or launching missiles. They were turning themselves into kinetic projectiles, using their own mass as the ultimate weapon. Admiral, came Captain Chen's voice from the Indomitable. The honor is mine, Captain, Rodriguez replied. See you on the other side. One by one, human ships slammed into the massive Devourer structure at significant fractions of light speed. The impacts released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons, tearing holes in construction that had been designed to withstand stellar forces. But even as their ships were destroyed, human crews continued fighting. Emergency pods became improvised missiles. Damaged reactors became bombs. Everything that could be weaponized was turned against the enemy. From inside the facility, Commander Torres provided running commentary. Demolition charges set on primary support structure. Devourer repair systems are going crazy trying to fix damage faster than we can cause it. Copy that, Torres, Rodriguez replied from his own damaged bridge. The explosion that followed could be seen from systems away. The construction facility, designed to last for millennia, came apart in a chain reaction that consumed the captured star at its heart. The blast wave destroyed everything within several light minutes of the facility. When the energy cleared, nothing remained of the Devourer primary base except expanding plasma and the twisted wreckage of 1,000 ships. But the most important destruction was invisible. The Devourer collective intelligence, centered on the facility, had been completely wiped out. Across the galaxy, Devourer ships suddenly stopped moving. Their coordination vanished. Their expansion ended. All units, report, Rodriguez called. His flagship was barely functional, but he was still alive. Alpha team reporting, came Torres's voice from somewhere in the debris field. Mission accomplished. Primary facility is toast. Beta team standing by, reported Captain Singh. Factory ships are beginning search and rescue operations. Charlie team, most of us are gone, came Commander Yamamoto's weak transmission. The casualty reports were devastating. 70% of the human fleet had been destroyed or damaged beyond repair. 3,000 soldiers and spacers were dead or missing. By any reasonable measure, it should have been considered a defeat. Instead, it was the most complete victory in galactic history. Within hours, reports came in from across the galaxy. Devourer forces were retreating from occupied systems. Their ships moved randomly, without coordination or purpose. Their network had been broken. Their expansion ended permanently. "It is over," Altara announced to the Council emergency session. "The Devourer threat has been eliminated. Find one. Find one." The celebration lasted for weeks. Council worlds that had expected to be consumed threw festivals in honor of their human saviors. Statues were erected, songs were written, and heroes were honored. But the humans themselves seemed uncomfortable with the attention. "We just did what needed to be done," Admiral Rodriguez said when the council tried to present him with their highest honors. "That is what we do." "But surely you want something in return," pressed Vex Tar. "Territory, resources, trade agreements." Rodriguez looked puzzled by the question. "Return? You called for help. We helped. That is payment enough." The conversation that followed revealed something that disturbed the council almost as much as the Devourer threat had. The humans genuinely did not want anything from them. They had fought and died to save complete strangers, and they expected nothing in return except the knowledge that the galaxy was safe. "Your species is very strange," observed Altara. "We know," Rodriguez replied with that disturbing human smile. "But strange works for us." In the months that followed, human fleets began departing Council space. They returned to their home sectors, to their dangerous worlds, and their violent lives. Most Council species were relieved to see them go. The humans were heroes, but they were also terrifying reminders of what war really looked like. But some changes were permanent. Human technology began appearing in Council databases. Human tactical concepts were studied in military academies. And most importantly, the galaxy now knew that somewhere in the darkness between stars, the most dangerous predators in existence stood ready to defend the weak. Captain Chen filed the final report from Earth Defense Force headquarters. Threat eliminated. Galaxy secure. Devourer expansion ended permanently. Recommend continued monitoring for similar threats. Human casualties acceptable within operational parameters. She paused before adding the final line. Additional note. The galaxy is more interesting than we expected. Request permission to establish permanent diplomatic contact with Council species. On Serenitas Prime, Council leader Altara updated the galactic database one last time. In the entry for the Sol system, she replaced the old designation with a new one. Species. Human. Classification. Apex predator. Threat level. Absolute. Status. Allied. Recommendation. Never, under any circumstances, threaten anything they consider worth protecting. The galaxy was safe. The Devourers were gone. And everyone now understood that Earth's children had claimed a new role as guardians of galactic civilization. Whether the galaxy wanted guardians or not. But as the weeks passed and trade routes reopened, as colony ships ventured into formerly dangerous space, one thing became clear. The universe was a much safer place now that everyone knew the Deathworlders were watching. And in the depths of space, human ships continued their patrols, ready for whatever threat might emerge next, because that was what they did. That was what they had always done. They protected those who could not protect themselves, even if those they protected found them terrifying. The galaxy would have to learn to live with its new guardians. But at least it would live.